A nice clean page. Page 3. 3 times 3 equals 9, hence 0. The beginning. When I start a new notebook, I never use the first piece of paper because, it's going to get scuffed up. I always leave both sides of that one blank and start writing on the second piece of paper where it will be protected from dirt. It's usually hobbies that I use notebooks for. I feel like writing a different type of thing now. Don't really know how to go about it. Blah, 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 words, words, words. Letters must add up to something, but I'm not sure what. Writing something down makes it feel like yesterday's news. Almost nothing actually is yesterday's news, though. Most of it is still going on. Today there was a reasonable day, like most others. I was due to paint a house just on the other side of town, and I got most of the prepping done in the morning, but then it started to rain, so I had to leave it be. Roanoke is a funny place to live. Not quite in the middle of nowhere, close by the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. Never seen a lonesome pine around here. There's billions of them. I quite like it, though. There's plenty of work. People always need things done to their houses. There's not much else to do, and you've got a hell of a job finding anywhere to eat or drink in the evening, especially on Sundays. The only place is Mikado's, a burger bar in the middle of town. Lots of high schoolers, though that's okay. They're not so rich that they're obnoxious. Most of them are pretty good kids. Basically, it's a town with a couple of malls, a small airport. In winter, you can go driving up in the mountains, find secret places. I drove back from Richmond along the ridge and passed all these little homesteads. People looked up at me like they'd never seen a car before. The land before time forgot. Virtually the most important thing I have ever discovered is the idea of digital roots. To find the digital root of a number, the aim is to reduce it to a single digit. You achieve this by adding up all its existing digits. 943521, for example, adds up to 9 plus 4 plus 3 plus 5 plus 2 plus 1 equals 24. This, of course, still has 2 digits, so you add them together. 2 plus 4 equals 6. The digital root of 943521, therefore, is 6. What is interesting, however, is that to speed up this process, you can simply cast out the nines. If there's a 9 in the number, or any digits add up to 9, you can ignore them. In 943521, therefore, you ignore the 9 and also ignore 4 and 5, which add up to 9. This leaves you with 3 plus 2 plus 1, which gives you 6, the same answer. I ended up here completely by chance. I don't know, can't chart the steps which brought me this way, I don't know. I don't remember anything in particular, but then maybe it could have been something so small that I wouldn't have thought it was important enough. I can remember some books, some conversations, some dreams, some things I saw, but nothing spectacular, no major blows to the head. You look for what makes sense. Susan, the girl who works in the bookstore, is lovely. She's got a great smile, and she always looks so cheerful and as if she knows something funny is going to happen sooner or later. And she's prime. I guess it's a vacation job or something. She noticed my accent straight away. I think she thinks it's cool. I hope so. Jerry was on the phone again earlier this evening, hassling everyone about what we're doing for the Millennium. Max is getting all hot and bothered too about it. Who cares? Everybody thinks that the year 2000 is going to be the big one. It's not. We're already there. It's already started. Cast out the nines and see how it is so. Last year was 1998. 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 8 equals 27, and 2 plus 7, or ignore the nines, and just 1 and 8 equals 9. Cast it out. 0, in other words. 1998 is ground zero, or the end of things, a nothing year in Modulo 9. 1999, on the other hand, has a digital root of 1. 1999 is year 1. 2000 roots down to 2. 2000 isn't the start of anything. It's after it has already begun. Millenniums don't mean anything to real people. Their lives revolve around much smaller circles. You strip things down. If you can't reduce a number down any further, then it means something. Otherwise, it's just addition. Got the Mackelson's house painted today. Did some work inside for them too, fixing up stuff. Think their neighbor might need some work done too. So it goes, luckily. It's very much like something breaks. When it's done, you go through this hell, like grief. At first, the units are minutes, and then hours, weeks, months, cycles of guilt and grief, and sometimes glee. Once you've been through it once, it's different. The first time, you're culpable. There's no getting away from it. Afterwards, it's different. All the structures, once so hard, become fluid forever. Like a bag full of broken glass in treacle. When you push your hand in it, it's sweet and sharp together. People are nice to me, but that just makes me feel sad and guilty because I know I'm not very nice. It's really painful. I have good friends, and I always have a laugh with the guys at the store where I buy my materials. Susan at the bookstore waves when she sees me go by. I don't deserve it. I want to be nice. It's important to me. I was nice once, I think, and bits of me still are. I used to drive miles, for example, every weekend to see someone. I had it in me then, the capacity for being good. I still do. Bits of me seem not to be touched by it at all. But they're no help either, and you have to wonder where the energy, the motivation, and glee come from. Doesn't any of it come from that part of me, the part I like? It must do, or if not, why is it so powerless? It must be very weak to be unable to do anything, in which case it's obviously not so blameless after all. It's all very well being that little flinchy man sitting up in a high tower of the castle, locked behind a door, wanting no part of it, weak, afraid, rational at the heart of the irrational. Rationality is weak. It has no moment, contributes to no interesting sums. All it does is cringe. The weather was colder again today. I don't feel hunted exactly. It's as if someone is reaching out of the dark towards me, as if the opaque brown fog is beginning to bulge as someone pushes against it from the outside. Think this is going to be a cold winter. 17 is the last year of being young. I remember when I was a kid, about 14, I guess, thinking how weird it would feel to be older. I could just about understand the ages of 16 and 17. 18 seemed like one of those ages like 21, where it's not so much an age as a legal marker, a boundary line. You don't think, oh, it's going to be like so-and-such being 18. You just think about the things that aren't going to be illegal anymore. 19, though, that seemed really odd. Being 19 was grown up and over the wall. Of course, it doesn't seem that way now, but it did then. Now I realize that 19 is 1 and 9, and 1 plus 9 equals 10, and 1 plus 0 equals 1. The first year of being old. 1 plus 8 is 9, a ground zero year. You have to watch everything very carefully. I think about people wanting birthday cards, Christmas cards, a phone call which isn't going to come. Mothers mainly. I wish I could say it made a big difference, but it doesn't. Squaring numbers is very easy. You just take the number and multiply it by itself. Anybody can do that. It's an easy road to travel, like time, in the usual direction. Roads. I remember that time back in England when I drove up to Cambridge from London on the M11 motorway. If there's any bad weather anywhere in the world, it'll be on the M11. I'm telling you. It feels as if the road has been built to make the worst of it. There are high stretches where strong winds seem to grab hold of the car and drag it towards other lanes. Average stretches where rain seems to sheet into the windscreen almost parallel to the ground. And then there are dips. Especially just outside Cambridge, there are long, low patches where fog collects and sits in a clump like porridge in a bowl. I used to have a girlfriend who lived there. For a year, in fact, over a year, I used to drive up the M11 every weekend. I saw it in spring, summer, autumn, winter, and regardless, the weather there was worse than anywhere else. One night in October, I drove down the slipway onto the motorway and found myself completely enveloped in fog. For the next 10 miles, visibility wasn't even as far as the end of the hood of the car. I couldn't see a damn thing. I couldn't see my own headlights, never mind anyone else's. I drove slower and slower and slower. I knew that after the next junction, the road gradually got a little higher, pulled itself out of the trough all around the town. I kept waiting for the junction. Nothing passed me, and I saw no other cars. No headlights on the other side of the carriageway, no taillights on my own. After a long time, I passed the first exit. Usually the fog lifted then. On that night, it stayed exactly the same. Just as thick, just as deadening, just as much like driving slowly through the middle of a monstrous snowdrift that reached up to the sky. There was no sound except for the hum of the engine. I turned the radio off to avoid distraction. I couldn't see a thing outside the car except for slow swirls within the mist. I'd been going for about 35 or 40 minutes when I started to feel uneasy. And after another 10, I was beginning to get really nervous. I knew the M11 like the back of my hand, and a message was starting to persistently knock on the back of my mind, where the autopilot sits and keeps an eye on things. Isn't it about time, it was saying, that we passed another exit? In normal conditions, I would pass the first exit about 10 minutes into the journey, and the second at the half-hour mark. This night was far from normal, and I was driving much slower than usual. But it was now at least 50 minutes since I'd passed the first exit. I couldn't have gone by the second without noticing. The massive exit signs by the side of the road were just about the only thing which I had been able to see at the beginning of the journey. So where was the second? I drove for another 10 minutes. Still no cars on my side of the road, and no headlights on the other. I drove on for 5 further minutes, picking up speed slightly. I was just a little concerned. 10 minutes later, a shape finally loomed out of the fog, and I breathed a sigh of relief. The journey was halfway over, and I'd seen the second exit. As I lit a cigarette, finally able to spare some concentration from the road, I thought for a moment, how long would it have taken me to have started panicking? How long would I have had to wait before too long became far too long? Before I'd start to feel in my heart of hearts that something had gone wrong, that the exit had disappeared and I was crawling along an endless fog-buried road into nothingness, the real world left behind. Someone is after me now, definitely. I know they are. It's an odd position to be in. Everyone else will always side with the hunter, which I'm not. Some people in my position call themselves that, but it's pure vaingloriousness. I assume he's a policeman. He doesn't know who I am yet, but he's there. I'm not even sure how I know this. I'm not sure how I know a lot of things. Maybe I'm noticing little signs without realizing what they are. I don't really know what to do about him. I'm not going to give myself up or give myself away if I can help it, but Maybe he could even be my friend. He must understand some of it, which would help. I don't understand. That's part of it. I don't understand why I can't just be nice. You read books, and a lot of people are just 1, 2, 3. These are the reasons why. An easy addition. I'm not, as far as I can remember. I don't have the excuse. I've got a fair number of friends, and they come around or I go see them and we hang out, but it's like the whole thing's in 2 dimensions. It's like a painted glass window, one stone and it's going to fall apart. I'm just not nice, and it makes me sad. But some people are nice to me, and I want to be nice, but can't. Not anymore. Once is enough. Too much. It taints your life. I was in the bookstore again today, bought some books, and had a cup of coffee. I had a chat with Susan again, too. The place wasn't very busy. I told her a couple of digital root tricks, like, take any number, say 4201. Add the digits, 4 plus 2 plus 0 plus 1 equals 7. Take the sum away from the original number. 4201 minus 7 equals 4194, and the result will always have a digital root of 9. Or take away any number, say 94213. Scramble the digits in any order you like, 32941 for instance, and subtract the smaller number from the bigger. 94213 minus 32941 equals 61272. Guess what? Digital root of 9 again. Those 9s, they get around. She thought the tricks were pretty cool. We got talking about symmetrical numbers and how they don't always come along in years very often. 1991, 2002, 2112, 2222. When I got home, I realized something. If you look at the digital roots, the sequence goes 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 1 equals 2. In the same way, 2002 equals 4. 2112 equals 6. 2222 equals 8, the even numbers. Then 2332 gives you 1. 2442 gives you 3. 2552 gives you 5. And 2662 gives you 7, the odd numbers, which is kind of interesting, maybe. Jerry spends $100 a month on porn. There's a place in Greensboro. We got really drunk a couple of months ago and he told me about it. Nothing weird, just people having sex. It obviously bothers him, but he can't stop doing it. He tries, he buys, he purges. Funny what accountants get up to. Fall in Roanoke is driving foggy roads. My 20s didn't make any sense to me, or my early 20s, or my 30s. I used to be able to understand ages. Up until you're 20, they make sense. Each year, from the early teens onwards, is a huge step until you're 20, when they start getting smaller and smaller again. The teens, so many things become possible. Each year is like a quantum leap. After that, you just keep getting a little older and smaller. You have birthdays, and sometimes people remember them, and sometimes they don't. When you were 16 and one of your friends had a birthday and became 17, you sure as hell knew about it. It meant your friend had gone to another planet. They stood taller than you, they were older. There's no difference between being 27 and 28, or 43 and 44. You've been around the ring too many times. 44 is a who gives a hoot, whatever madoodle you're on. It's like falling in love. The Greeks knew a lot about math, but they didn't know about zero. Seriously, they had no zero, which meant they didn't understand how numbers relate to people and what they do. The difference between 0 and 1 is the biggest difference in the world, far greater than that between 2 and 3, because they're just additional counts, whereas 0 is never having done it at all. They knew very little about the irrational and nothing about the quiet that lies beyond even that. They liked perfection, the Greeks. Perfect numbers, for example, which are the sum of the numbers that you can divide by them. 6 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3. 28 equals 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 7 plus 14. They are also, as it happens, the sum of consecutive whole numbers. 6 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3. 28 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7. Kinda neat. But perfect numbers are very, very rare. Irrationality is far more common. They say Pythagoras just pretended irrational numbers didn't exist, just couldn't handle the idea. Shows how you can be a really bright guy and still know zilch. There's one under the kitchen floor. It's not even a very big kitchen, but there's one under there, about a foot under, lying face up. It's covered in concrete, and there's good quality slate laid on top. But sometimes, when I see one of my friends standing in there, I think, Jesus, that's really bad. Last time it happened was when Max and Julie were around, and Max was fixing us drinks in the kitchen. It's like the floor goes transparent for a moment, and I can see her lying there, below people's feet. Not literally, of course. I don't get visions. If anything, I'm too rational. Other times, for longest stretches, I just forget, and then the remembering is very bad. It's like, Jesus, what have I done? What can I do about it? And the answer is always nothing. It's too late now to go back. It's always been too late. On the one hand, it's disgusting and pathetic and sick, but in everyday life, images will pop into my mind, pictures, memories of things I've done. I push them away, but the pictures and memories feel warm and comforting and glorious, like the robes of a king in exile. After a while, they come more often, and the sense of glee will start to strengthen. That's when I know it's going to happen again. The dance begins, a dance where I'm my own partner, but I can't work out who's leading. It's a wonderful dance while it lasts. Slim, slender, small. The little ones are like digital roots of breasts. You don't need great big lumps of flesh to prove you're a woman. It's in the face, in the nature, stripped down to the essential. Imagining is okay. I would have to be very careful because of this guy. I wonder what he's like. I wonder what's going to happen. Whether he's righteously angry or just doing his job. And I wonder why I'm so convinced he's there. Whether there's some structure that I'm sensing but just can't see. Maybe I need new sums. So, locked up that even when drunk, you never get near it. 17 is prime. If you think about it, if someone's 17, they're not yet an adult, but they're no longer a child. Not least because it has no factors. 16 is 2 8s or 4 4s, come to that. I'm not getting involved with multiples of children. The prime numbers between 10 and 20 are 13, 17, and 19. 19 is too old. 13 is a child. 17 is indivisible by anything except 1 and 17, which is right, because there's one 17-year-old there, one real person. It is disgusting. I know that. But it's also the only thing which has any reality or point. If I could only lose the guilt and remain the same person, I could be happy. But I can't, and I want to be nice. I had a dream once where I had a number and squared it, and the result was 2. When I woke up, I wanted to write the number down, but I'd forgotten it. Forever, the pull between what I want and the need to be nice. So many people live their lives like that. I don't know any perfect numbers in real life. Max is married, but he wants to sleep with other women. Not because he doesn't love Julie, he does. You only have to look at him to see how much they care about each other, but he just wants to sleep with other women. He told me this once, very stoned, but I knew anyway. You only have to watch his eyes, hunger and guilt. His argument is that monogamy is artificial. He says that in the animal kingdom, very few species mate for life, that it makes biological and evolutionary sense for the male to spread his genes as widely as possible, increase the chance of fertilization, and introduce as much variation into the gene pool as possible, which may be true. But I suspect he just wants to bite some different nipples for a change. Meanwhile, he has, I suspect, absolutely no idea that Julie throws up once a meal in 3. He's not very observant, I guess. I was talking with Susan again today, showing her some more number tricks. She likes the way they dance. She's sharing a house with 2 other girls, but her friends have gone home for the vacation. It's funny the way she talks to me. Careful, polite, because I'm older, but friendly too. She's just finding her way. I want to be whole, but you can only be whole if you tell, and I can't possibly tell. So who is that person that people know? And if they like you, what does it mean? Most things you can confess. You can absolve yourself by mentioning it, however lightly, by saying, "Oh God, you'll never guess what I did, silly me." Not this. You can't absolve this. I have good friends, but not that good. No friends are that good. My secret keeps me apart from everyone. At least if you're an alcoholic, you can try to admit it in front of yourself, God, and one other person. Everyone says, "Hey, that's a bad thing," but then they want to help you. I can only admit it to the first 2, and believe me, it's the third that makes the difference. It must be. Otherwise, there's no way out of this except death. That's why some people want to be caught, not to be stopped, not for the publicity, but just so you can get it out. Admitting to God makes no difference. So far as I can tell, he doesn't care. Today was Sunday and it was snowing. I spent all day indoors tinkering with stuff. There was a guy working on the fence of the house opposite. He didn't look familiar. Paranoia is dangerous because it can make you behave oddly. You have to behave properly. You have to be rational in the heart of irrationality. It's not like half of these little idiots matter. For a year, they're prime. Then just machines pushing machines with baby machines in them. Not prime, not even perfect, just blobs. Irrational numbers are those which cannot be accurately expressed as a fraction, whose decimal places ramble randomly on, like the square root of 2, which starts 1.414213562237 and goes on and on and on. Pi is also an irrational number, very effing irrational, in fact. Pi is a number that's off its face on drugs. People have spent their lives calculating it to millions and millions of places, and still there's no pattern and no precise value. Pi is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its radius. You work out the circumference of a circle through the equation c equals 2 pi r, where r is the radius, the distance from the exact center of the circle to the ring. Of course, if you have the circumference, you can work out the radius by reversing the process and dividing by pi. But whichever way you do it, pi is still involved, and pi is irrational. The length of the radius can be as precise as you like. 5.00 centimeters, 12 inches, 100 meters exactly. But the circumference is still going to have a never-ending series of numbers on the right-hand side of the decimal point because of pi. You can use an approximation like 3.14 or 3.141592653589793, but you're never going to know the exact value because there isn't one. There is uncertainty and darkness at the heart of something as simple as a circle. I am the radius. I am rational when the circle of the world is not. Of course, it works the other way too. When the circumference is rational, the radius is not. Perhaps I am that radius instead. I haven't been to the bookstore for a week. I could make it easier. I could move to Nevada or somewhere, 70 towns in the area the size of a European country, but I won't. That would be giving in. I don't want to live in Nevada. It's pretty enough, but there's nothing else happening there. Going there would be allowing it to become all my life. There's nothing to do except to go to Las Vegas, and those numbers ain't never gonna be on your side. The occasional transgression I can talk myself round from. But if I lived in Nevada, every morning when I woke up, I would know there was only one reason for my being there. It would become my whole life instead of just part of it. Why else would you live in Nevada? Plus, I imagine that people there are pretty good at fixing up their own houses. Maybe I can just keep hanging on. Him and me and poor little Pi in the middle, waiting to make one of us irrational. Maybe they've stopped looking, or maybe they were never looking in the first place. Sometimes it's very difficult for me to tell what are rational fears and what are not. It's such a cliff to step out over. I did what? Like having your heart in an elevator when someone cuts the cord holding it up. Then you reach out and steadily pull yourself back. You walk away from the shaft, but you know it's there. Waking in the middle of the night, cold panic, nothing happens. Eventually, you get back to sleep. But Christ, the times when I don't have to do it, it's wonderful. I feel so strong. When I can recall what's happened, the things that have been done, and feel okay about them, when it just seems interesting and strange, and I can think to myself, I'm never doing that again. Not in the way I feel immediately afterwards, but when I feel sick about the whole thing and my balls ache and I'm flooded and sit in the living room scrubbed clean, but in a calm, dispassionate way. No, I think, I'm not going to do that again. I know I've done it, but that was then. This is now, and I don't need it anymore. It was bad, but it's gone. I did it, but I don't anymore. It's finished. It's over. It hasn't been yet, though. It's never been over yet. Julie and Max looked happy tonight. More than half my mind is always somewhere else. Even my friends seem like someone else's, because only part of me is ever really with them. The rest of me is out on the trail, walking by myself. I remember another time driving on the M11 one afternoon. I realized that all of the cars coming the other way had their lights on and their wipers going. I thought this was strange until I noticed that it actually was raining on the other side of the road. It was dry on the northbound side, wet on the southbound. I didn't mean to go in, but I had a coffee at the shop opposite and saw her in the window serving a customer. So I finished up and went into the bookstore. 17 is prime in a perfect age. 1 plus 7 is 8, and thus the digital root of the perfect age is 8. I'm 35 now, in 1999, the year of 1, of starting. The digital root of 35 is 8, too, and I have this sense of someone closing in. This can hardly be a coincidence. Perhaps I'll always be in danger when my age collapses to the same age as the girls. When they have the same digital root, it makes sense. It makes us too closely linked. When I was 26, I wasn't doing this, so I was safe. 44 will be dangerous. 53, 62. But I can't believe I'll still be doing this then. I jog, but I can't see me being fit enough at 62. It's no walk in the park, this kind of thing. And will it make any sense to be doing this when my hair is gray and every part of me is scrawning out apart from a little pale gray and a little paunch? Surely something will have burnt out by then. Interestingly, if you follow Wilson's test for primes, taking the factorial of p minus 1 to be congruent with negative 1 mod p, we find that the primeness of 17 leaves us with 16 as the value in base 10 of negative 1 mod 17. Half of 16 is 8. Again, rather convenient. All the 8s, 2 cubed, of course. I still can't work out whether that means I should take 8 a year. It seems far too much. I'm happier with low primes, like 3, 5, or 7. Even 7 seems weak and greedy. 5 is better. It's worked for me so far. I don't like 2 as a prime, even though it passes Wilson. It just doesn't feel right. The heart of 2 is irrational. The heart of a 17-year-old makes sense. To them, to me. I don't really remember the first time. You'd think you would. I remember little flashes of it, little sparks of darkness, but I can't really remember the whole thing. I remember where she's buried. I remember that all too well. Sometimes when I'm lying in bed and I feel okay, I slowly start to feel something reaching out for me. I realize that there's a bit of my brain which will always be standing in a patch of forest a little way from Epping, watching over a grave, standing guard over a woman with maybe no one else even misses that much. She was short on family. She wasn't 17, of course, but she was 29. She was still prime, albeit a higher prime. But the actual doing of it, not really. I tend to remember the more recent ones most. You do, don't you? Because it's more recent. But even they are just a few still images, like I was really drunk. I wasn't, but it's like that. It's not like the normal things you do. I guess that's kind of funny in a way. It's really not like the normal things you do. Susan was kind of glum today. She had an argument with her landlord, or the guy who owns the house they let, or whoever he is. Leaking roof, which is no fun when it's this wet and cold and going to get wetter and colder. I told her that I know something about such things. You should have seen her smile. I tried to work out once from first principles how you find the square root of a number without a calculator. I did it in my head. From school, I distantly remembered that you think of a number close to it, whose square you know, and adjust it up and down by trial and error until you're pretty close. But that's not very precise. It's not very attractive. It's such a simple thing, squaring something. Such an easy step. You take a number and multiply it by itself. Anyone can work that out. But finding the square root, reversing the process, there must be a way back, I thought. Once you've walked down a road, there must be some way home. I found out in the end. You use the Newton-Raphson equation for successive approximation. It bites its tail. You feed a number into the equation, then feed the result back in, and you feed that result back in, and keep working it, until you stop. Except that with many numbers, even a simple number like 2, you never do. You never stop. The result is irrational and goes on forever. I can put as many primes through the loop as I like, and the decimals will never stop. I can never find the number that I squared to make 2. It's not there anymore. There's no way back. It's tainted. My age always reduces to 8 when the year root is 1. The root of 17 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9, which casts itself out. The sum of me is always on the other side of the barrier, cast out. Nothing can be done about it. Always driving in the rain, with no turning in sight. Tomorrow evening, at 8 o'clock, I'm going to an address just outside of town to fix a roof as a favor. That's all.